So since 1978, I've been a Democrat. I have voted in every election that I could, and wherever I couldn't, then I made in person, and I made sure I had my mail-in ballot, and I received it, and I mailed it back, and I voted, and I studied the issues. And you can go back and see who was running at the time, and why. And then why was because it started with seeing the candidates and what their values were. And if it matched what I liked, my little column, pros and cons, you know, of both candidates, I couldn't abide by the Conservative Party. I just couldn't, because to me it was stagnant. To me, I didn't see change. I didn't see hope, and we're seeing that today. When I went to school, and I remember I said 1978 is when I graduated high school. In 1978, we had just passed, in 1973, the ERA. But here's the thing, for any health reproductive choices that I wanted to make, I had to ask, if I was married, I had to ask my husband's permission. My mom, for all the years, couldn't open a bank account in her name, you know, couldn't write checks, couldn't sign checks, because that's the way the world was. She couldn't get a credit card. And then as time changed, she was able to do that. But what happened, the result of impeding somebody to be able to fend for themselves, learn banking, and all these basic things to live, was that my mom didn't know when I was in high school how to write a check. And that was just, you know, so always that patriarchy kind of mentality, you know. And then she had a daughter who wasn't that way at all, you know. But when I was growing up, those things were still in place. And then, of course, the abortion rights were passed. It was 1973 the abortion rights were passed, right? Roe versus Wade. I was still a kid. It's not looking the same. And it's not going to look the same because, first and foremost, you have a woman who will potentially be running the administration. And that's never happened before. But we do know that history shows us that there's a lot of progressive movement, progressive being in the form of progress. Movement towards finding solutions to problems that have inherently been taking years and years and years. So a lot of that is the language that I hear, a lot of that is the actions that I see being presented as a form to affect change. And so yes, to answer you directly, yes, a lot of them are speaking about immigration. Some of it, not what I am 100% supportive of. Most of it is starting. I can see, even in the language they're using, adjusting and changing. If I were to criticize my own party, it would say, could you please stay away from border security? It really annoys me. It really annoys me, because I think we have already shown to an excessive point border security. I think too much investment has been done under that topic, under that guise. And to me, it's more to appease that other side. I see immigration, the whole situation of immigration, it's a good question. I see it as an opportunity that nobody has really tapped. And this is how. I think, okay, here's this big boogeyman called immigration. Let's take it apart. We need to know and study about how immigration has impacted and impacts the DACA recipients. That's a whole different ballgame than somebody who presents for asylum. I know, because I've read it, we need to adjust the times with what it means to seek asylum. That's only natural that it should be adjusted. It's 2024. That was written way back when. So it needs to be adjusted. But aside from those big policies, the reason why I say there's opportunity in a positive view of immigration is jobs. It can stimulate education, because we need attorneys. It can stimulate jobs, because you need to invest in maybe some processing centers and maybe some places where people come in and you need attorneys. I see it as a gateway for our own progress, if we were more geared to planning that way. So, if a person crosses the border and they come in, and let's say the paperwork is okay, they come in. And then, but with that said, the side note on that is we have to be consistent. We have to be consistent. The lack of consistency has been more detrimental to the United States. And of course, the people who suffer are the mothers and children that are trying to come and seek of a better life, whatever that means. Who are we to say, oh, you couldn't make it or can't make it in your country, so you're coming over here to make it? Yes, yes, what's wrong with that? I compare it to a lot of what they call themselves expats, and I've started to use the term immigrant for all of those people who are living abroad, all of the U.S. citizens living abroad in our case. Why did they move? Well, they moved because they can't afford the health care in the United States. So that tells me we got to fix health care. You see what I'm saying? There are opportunities here. And if we start changing their mind, there's opportunities for job, education. We need attorneys. Well, then offer programs for folks, the young people, to go in and study to become an attorney, specializing in immigration. Have the professors and people way smarter than me to build a program that gears them to help people to process the immigration. To me, it's not rocket science. It's just a focus that we worry about. As far as people always talking about the drug problem, the people who are crossing the border for drugs are coming from the United States into Mexico, getting their drugs and bringing it back across. That is the drug problem. The drug problem is that they exist. There's cartels. Well, then that calls for international, again, education, international relations specifically for this, and that can be put in place. But we know statistically that's not happening. So what we do, unfortunately, we have a history of the easy answer is, well, here's weapons, here's security, here's all this money, just try to fix it, pick a country. Whereas if it was more thought out and put in place, then maybe we could address that. We also know statistically the drugs are not coming in from across the land border. It's coming in, I'm sorry, it's coming in through airports. And it's also coming in through the mail system. So again, then we got a problem at the airports, and we got a problem in the mail system. And I like to point out again that it is not an immigrant who is doing this. It is a U.S. citizen who is bringing, statistically, more than anybody else. So that's kind of a roundabout way of trying to touch all these points. Yes, we do need to look at the asylum process and update it. But again, it goes back to what I first said. Who are we to say you can't come over, to do a better life? But I also know and recognize and understand that a person from a war-torn country seeking asylum is different than the person who is seeking for economic opportunity. But it doesn't mean that either one of them should be penalized. On the contrary, we will benefit. Establish a committee to look into how to address asylum. They did it with the DACA. Now they finally said, but then in that, they stepped on their toes. They stepped all over themselves because they say, well, you can be processed as DACA, you can get your citizenship if, and then they go down the line and put all these blocks. And that's what our immigration system is yes, we are a welcoming nation, but wait. If you're a tourist, you can come and stay so much time. And if you overstay, nobody really cares, depending on where you're from. Yes, you can marry a U.S. citizen and come live in this country and be on your pathway, but there's always that but. Yes, you came here and you had a child, whatever reason you were here, and so now you have pathway to citizenship, but, and it's that but that screws up everything. My Latino population that has moved here recently and has been here, the people that are in the shadows, so to speak, who have had children, we know who they are, who, for whatever reason, other than not committing a felony, right, but can't vote. Learn your learn civics, learn government, learn how the government works. While you cannot vote, you should learn how the United States government works. And it doesn't have to be a deep dive, but it has to be what does it mean to vote, who can vote, who's the governor, who's the mayor, who's city council, down to the town that you live in. There's a city council, there's county supervisors, there's even a chamber of commerce. Learn who those people are, learn what positions are elected, and learn what it means to really be a two-party system with all these other addendums being independence, and what does it mean to be an independent, because that's what I'm finding when I reach out to the Latino voter. Although I understand the attraction to be an independent voter. If I come from Venezuela, where they've had all these problems and whatnot, and I come here and I become a U.S. citizen, and you give me a choice of one party or the other, based on my experience, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to be in Spanish, ni aquí ni allá, right? Just right here in the middle, that way I can make up my own mind. It's attractive to be an independent voter. Because why? They get to vote by their values and what affects their pocketbooks and how it affects their home. So, but they need to understand that how the election system works when the primaries, what does it mean to be in the primary? So, again, that's, kind of touching on what a civics education would be. So a person who cannot vote should go ahead and know what it means to vote. It isn't just go cast a ballot, it's more. I have a 40-year-old son. So I tell him, I've always told him since he became eligible to vote at 18, is basically, it mirrors. Learn the issues. Are you mad that climate change is more of a young person type thing? Are you mad about that? Well, guess what? All the mad and bitching and whining isn't going to get you anywhere. So you need to learn about climate change and how the legislative laws work, and then get involved. And that falls under what Michelle Obama said the other night, was do something. Do something. That's what we have to do. We have to do something. So we do something, and that's the do something. Educate yourself. The only way to affect discouragement is to get involved and stimulate change. And you can't stimulate change in any direction. You cannot stimulate change unless you study and get involved. So kind of one hand washes the other. Una mano lava la otra. It has to be that way. And I also tell them, we don't know the options. It's a beautiful life, and the way that we can enjoy it is by engagement.